Hey guys, it's Q&A Tuesday. I jumped to a question from a new subscriber. His name is Hans Mueller. Hey Roman, a few weeks ago I found your videos on YouTube, and since that day, every day I watch a few of them. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Of all the guys producing similar stuff, you have by far the highest credibility and knowledge. I'm collecting watches since nearly 40 years, and I'm currently only interested in AP Patek, Rolex, and Panerai. AP is my favorite, and Barrichello 2, #1. My favorite limited edition offshore, by the way, the Barrichello 2 in titanium. Second favorite would be Montoya, but in rose gold. I have a question which you may use in your Q&A Tuesday if you wish. I love your 5402A, which you have presented in episode 51 of WOMD. I put that on when I read this question. Also a watch I wear most often, by the way. I also own a 15202, a Patek 3700, but a 5402 is my dream. You have explained that you prefer an untouched case and that would add extra value to the watch. Why would you buy a Rolex with the bezel screws fixed in the wrong position? Isn't that proof that for the watch that's been opened by somebody most probably not qualified, as he did not even know how the screws have to be positioned? Who services your AP watches? Which did you allow for the unusual position of the screw on your watch? Looking forward to see as many more of your videos. Kind regards, Hans. Going to address what you said in regards to highest credibility. I certainly appreciate that and knowledge. And I do know quite a bit about watches, and I do have a lot of credibility in the business. If you ask any other dealers about me, they will say the same thing, but I wouldn't dub myself to be the most knowledgeable. There are many guys out there that are not even in the business that are extremely knowledgeable in regards to watches and horology in general and history and so on and so forth. But I do thank you for saying that. It does mean a lot. If you guys ever noticed, when people ask me questions, say things like, I love your video, or, you know, I love the knowledge and so on and so forth. So I always say thank you, because I am thankful. You know, when I hear comments like that, it does make me feel good, as they should. It means I'm doing something right, and it encourages me again to go further and continue doing these things. So I do appreciate every single one of those comments, every single one of those personal comments towards me on my videos from you guys. Let's address your collection. 3700, 15202, wonderful watches. Definitely great pieces to have in your collection. And as far as my 5402, and the screws being affixed in the wrong position, you're not the first person to say that. This watch was at one time opened up by someone, most likely to check how legit the movement is and so on and so forth. It wasn't done by me or anybody that it was serviced from. And to answer your question, the reason I bought this particular watch, regardless of the fact that the screws are fixed in the wrong position, it was due to the fact of who I bought it from. Our business is a funny business. Our business is a handshake business, and you need to know who to do business with. I bought it from an extremely reputable guy out in California that I knew, and I asked him the same question about the screws. He's like, yeah, at one time this watch was opened up. The screws were affixed in the wrong positions. I had this watch opened up, and I had the screws put back exactly as they were, because that's how the watch was. And to me, it was like, okay, I kind of like the fact that my screws are affixed in the wrong position. I kind of like the fact that they're facing every which way. This is how the watch has been around laying around for years. This is how I'm going to keep it. So a lot of guys have been giving me heat on this channel in regards to, wait a minute, what's going on with the screws? What's going on? I don't care. Really, the money in this watch is in the dial. It's how the dial is aged, it's how the markers are aged, how the AP logo has aged, and everything about that particular watch. And the fact that this watch has seemingly never been polished and is still in decent condition with its original brace and full links. I have 2 extra links for this watch. My wrist is small, so I ended up taking them out, which is a pain in the butt to take out. And it's not just a matter of taking 2 screws out, you have to actually punch them out. But this is, the value is in the dial of this particular watch. To answer your question in regards to who services my AP watches, I do have a gentleman that I use who's an authorized service center for many brands, including AP New York, that I use for regular stuff. If I were to service this particular watch, I would send it to Audemars Piguet. But honestly, since I've had this watch for quite a while now, it keeps absolutely perfect time, functions properly. I've yet to have any issues with it, which tells me that it doesn't really need a service yet. So I'm going to still continue kicking this watch around as is, with the screws facing whichever way, because honestly, personally, I like the way that looks. As I said, our business is funny. The very guy that sold me this watch, if you called me tomorrow and said, hey Roman, can you memo me about $10 million worth of watches? I got important clients coming into my office. I wouldn't flinch twice in sending him $10 million worth of stuff without signing a single piece of paper, just by sending him a shipment. That's how much trust I have in people that I deal with. And that's what goes on in our business. It's funny that way. It's all based on a handshake. So if you send me this watch, even though the screws were affixed wrong, he assured me everything is perfectly fine and legit. and original to the watch, and I don't have to open this watch up to know that. I just know it based on what you told me. Hope that answers your question, and again, thanks for watching my videos. Here's a comment and a question from Dmitry Fishbane, whose questions I've answered before. Hey Roman, a little fun fact about Rolex Air King. It is undoubtedly the dog in the Rolex lineup. However, they do have a collector value. Well, some do. There was a regular production version with a double 9 dial destined to be collected. Someone in the Rolex quality control passed a few Air King with 2 9s on the dial, second one being at the 3 location. Rolex eventually realized the mistake, replaced a bunch, but some of them are still out there. How often does Rolex make a mistake? Can you do an episode on watch manufacturer mistakes and how they affect the brand within horology hierarchy? Reparability, sales, and collectability. I already know you're not a Custos fans. Thanks a lot for great videos. Keep up the good work. I am going to most likely collab with somebody on this that has a little more knowledge, because nowadays and age that you don't find a lot of mistake in modern watches. Most of the stuff is found in some of the older models across a slew of brands. I will answer your question in regards to reparability, sales, and collectability. It doesn't affect reparability. If it's a reputable company and they make a simple mistake as on a dial, in fact, most collectors will go crazy over it, and it will affect the collectability. Anything that's a mistake out there in an item that is deemed collectible, not just watches, but coins, stamps, etc., goes through the roof. Isn't there like a penny out there that trades for $5 million that was double stamped? Even though I'm not a big coin guy, I heard of that as well. So collectability, absolutely. It won't affect sales, it won't affect reputability. The only thing that can affect reputability, you mentioned Custos, is when you get a product that's subpar, doesn't work well, and breaks all the time. But mistakes are just mistakes on a dial or something that made very little of it. That's exactly what it is. It becomes so scarce, it becomes super collectible, and those are the things that fetch crazy prices at auctions, online, and among vintage collectors or even modern collectors. Sorry I couldn't answer the question in regards to giving you more examples, but I will reach out to someone that I know knows about these things and do a collab with him and make an episode out of it. Next, let's take a question from a gentleman by the name of KH. Roman, great stuff. Looking to pull the trigger on a grain Seiko spring drive with a blue dial. An older Rolex 16610, looking for your take between the two. Kind of hard to compare. Right off the bat, I'll tell you Rolex. Even though Seiko is a huge reputable company, even though the Grand Seikos right now flying off the shelves, they're not discounting much at all. There's a big craze about them. Every blogger and their mother talks about Grand Seikos and writes up articles and so on and so forth because it gets them the traffic to their blogs. Guys are buying into that. They're buying their higher end watches and so on and so forth. Where most watch guys going back are going to say, Seiko is Seiko, and the other big boys are the other big boys. They don't consider Seiko to be one of the big boys. They don't put them in line with AP, IWC, Jaeger. If it was my choice, I would definitely go with the Rolex. I actually received some Seikos. I went out and I bought a deal of Seikos to put online because again, I'm a business, and if Seiko is what's selling right now, I'm going to get out there, try to get Seiko at a good price and bring it forth to the consumer. But I will always choose Rolex over Seiko. And again, this is just my personal opinion. Rolex is here and Seiko is way down there in comparison. In terms of resale value, if the Seiko hype is over, you will lose money on a Seiko, where with Rolex, most likely you will not. But, and I say this all the time, and I'll say it again, I'm sure it's like a broken record at this point. You buy what you like first and foremost. And if it's the Grand Seiko that you like better than the Rolex, don't go for the name. Don't go for the popularity. Go for the Seiko because you happen to like that watch better. And it doesn't matter what I think or anybody else think. If it's the Grand Seiko that you're looking at in terms of strictly this is the watch that I like most, and you would pick it over the Rolex or the AP or any other brand, and that's what you buy. It doesn't really matter. But personally, I would go with the Rolex. I hope that answers your question. Next question is from VJ Yamad. Hi Roman, thanks for sharing your knowledge. You're welcome. A Daytona is the only one that's missing in my collection. I totally missed the bus when they were still relatively affordable in the used market. However, two-tone variants are still comparably reachable. What dial would be your choice? Black, silver, white, or slate? Also, what do you think the mid-2000s Turn-O-Graphs collectible? I find them really attractive, albeit the 36mm sizing. Cheers, Dr. VJ from Singapore. Well, doctor, I will tell you one thing. As far as the choice of the two-tone Daytonas, I would go with the black dial. I feel like that's the best looking combination in my opinion. Of course, that doesn't mean that's the one you should go with. If you like the slate, the white, or the silver, again, it's your choice. I would go with the black. Mid-2000 Turn-O-Graphs, collectible, I find them really attractive. I'll give you a little secret, right? So I won't mention any names. for privacy reasons, there is a vintage Rolex guy out there, a big vintage Rolex out there, that has by now put away close to 200 Turn-O-Graphs, starting from the very, very first ones to the very, very latest ones, because the Turn-O-Graph was an overlooked model. It was another 36 millimeter Datejust, is what it was dubbed as. It was a smaller size, and they didn't produce that many of them because it was not that popular. So this gentleman quickly recognized this, and he's done this before with various other Rolexes, like older dates and certain specific Datejusts, like the ones with no Cyclop, right? And what he does is he buys up as many as he can cheap, because you can buy some of the older ones as low as $2,000, right? He's going to wait a little bit, and then what he's going to do is going to start slowly pulling out some of the better examples, some of the older ones, some of the better condition ones, the ones that are complete with box and papers, accessories and tags, etc. And he's going to raise the price high. He's going to ask high for them. So a watch he may have paid $3,000 to $4,000 for, he's going to ask $12,000, and everybody's going to wonder why. Everybody in the dealer industry is going to wonder why is he asking such a stupid price for a watch that was trading much, much lower not too long ago. Because when dealers forget about certain models, they disappear off the market. So now those dealers are going to go out there, okay, well, wait a minute, this guy is an expert. This guy is really has good rapport in the industry. So if he's asking 12 grand for this watch, there must be a reason. They're going to go out and try to find some. And they're going to find that the market is dry because this gentleman happened to buy them all up with a relatively insignificant investment. If you're talking about an average price of 3 grand, 200 watches, it's 600,000. Yes, it's a lot of money for most people, but in our industry, it's relatively an insignificant amount of money. But that $600,000 investment can then pay off 10 times fold once the market realizes, well, wait a minute, these watches are not collectible. Obviously, people want them. Let me try to get out there and buy them. This can be done with any model watch out there. If tomorrow I went out and I bought up every single model XYZ of Rolex that's out there, or majority of it out there. Again, going back sometimes, it's very hard to do it with a modern watch that's still being produced, right? And I put it away in a safe, and 5 years later, I stopped pulling them out one by one and selling them at 10 times the value that I bought them at. Again, it will raise eyebrows in the industry, and people will follow suit. There's a food chain in our industry. You have your bigger dealers, smaller dealers, and there is a chain out there. There's people on top of the pyramid, and there's people on the bottom of the pyramid, and the ones that are on the bottom tend to follow suit the ones that are above them. I don't want to call it a trick, but it's certainly something that works. And it's not a scam. It's not it's not wrongdoing in a sense. It's somebody being smart and recognizing that, hey, here's a model of a watch that is very unpopular. It was unpopular when it was being made, therefore they didn't make many of them, because it takes knowledge to recognize this. I can create a market on this. So to answer your question, you should pick up a Turn-O-Graph, because pretty soon you'll see Turn-O-Graphs trading at a higher value than they are today. And today they're still very, very cheap. You can pick up older ones for under $5,000. And the fact that you actually like the watch would make it a great buy. Whether the market goes through the roof with them or not, whether this trick or strategy will work out for a guy whose name I didn't mention, we don't know that, but it doesn't really matter, because again, it's a great deal, it's a great looking watch, I agree with you, so certainly get out there and pick yourself up. Hope that answers your question. I'm going to take one more from Hamza Rahman. Hey, your last name is like my first name, if I pronounced it correctly. Hey Roman, superb video as usual. What are your thoughts about the Linder Werdelin brand, one I can never pronounce properly, right? I'm thinking of purchasing the carbon case Spido Speed or a pre-owned Royal Oak carbon offshore diver. I recently bought the AP Ghost and very happy with my first AP purchase. So for my next watch, I'm looking for a good carbon case watch. Fortunately, I'm sorry to say, I can't give you too big of an opinion of the Linder Lind watch. And the reason because I've never had one in my hands. I've never bought one, and I've never sold one. To me, it was sort of that Instagram watch that popped up a few years back. Everybody was going crazy over it. I did do some reading about it, but not enough to sit there and try to give you an honest opinion, just because I don't have enough experience with it. I will talk about carbon watches with you specifically. And a while back, I did some episodes on certain carbon watches. I think it was APs for that matter. If you ask me to choose between carbon offshore diver versus the L brand watch, I would tell you hands down, take the AP Carbon, because I don't know how much longer that brand will be around. The resale value in my mind on that brand would be not all that great. If somebody wanted to trade in that watch for me for another watch, I would probably pay them pennies on a dollar, due to the lack of my knowledge, due to the lack of the market on the watch, and due to the lack of many factors that, not a whole lot of people will know about this brand, period, right? I didn't even go on their website. I don't know how long they've been around, but if I had to guess, it's either a brand new brand or a brand that was bought over and recreated years later. But again, Zero knowledge on that. Carbon Royal Oak Offshore Diver. I'm a big fan of carbon watches in the way that they look. One of my favorite APs is the Carbon AP Alinghi, but it suffers a very bad fate, and that is carbon gets beat to crap. If you're somebody that wears their watches not very careful, I would tell you to stay away from carbon watches altogether, because once you ding them, there's really not much you can do about it. If you beat up the case of a Carbon Alinghi, you have to replace the case. If you beat up the bezel of the Carbon Alinghi, you have to replace the bezel. You cannot polish them. You cannot fill in the carbon, right? Much like with titanium, steel, or gold watches. But some of the newer carbon divers, they come with ceramic bezel, which are dubbed to be unscratchable, which again, I don't know anyone that actually took the ceramic bezel and scratched it against the pavement. I highly doubt anybody wants to do that test, but that makes it a bit better. And the reason for that is because majority of the time when you bang a watch, you tend to bang the top of it and you hit the bezel. Very rarely do you bang up the side of the case unless you drop the watch or walk into a door handle awkwardly or something like that. I would tell you to go with the carbon diver with the ceramic bezel, just in terms of durability, because carbon is what you really want. The Alinghi, the Carbon Alinghi today, a watch that used to trade in that mid-20s is now down to the mid-teens. You can pick up a deal on that watch. But again, beware of the fact that that does not have a ceramic bezel, that has a carbon bezel, that if you beat it up, the only way to fix it is to replace parts, and that gets very, very costly because you have to send it into AP. No watchmaker can get those parts. Only AP can provide those parts. And also, since you're a fan of AP, you're very happy with the Ghost, which is, I think, one of the coolest new officers the AP came out with. You can go, I would go with another AP as well, but once again, and I tell you guys this all the time, I'm completely transparent, I'm completely biased. AP is my favorite brand. So if you're gonna ask me brand XYZ versus AP, I'm most likely always going to go with AP, right? But check out other options, other more known brands that are out there. Everybody and their mother jumped on the bandwagon of carbon watches, right? From Panerai to Jaeger to IWC, there's a slew of major brands out there outside of the Linder, whatever, the L brand, right? Sorry, I can't pronounce it. That is out there that give you pretty cool options on carbon watches, right? There are plenty of other watches that have a combination of carbon and other materials. Think in terms of durability, as I mentioned earlier. Think in terms of price range. Bell & Ross makes carbon watches that are a lot more affordable than that of AP. Panerai. Panerai came out with their new Carbotech lineup this year. I did an episode about their new lineup when I was reviewing both Basel and SIHH, right? So take a look at their lineup. I think there's some of the coolest carbon looking watches, if you ask me. So no offense to Linderlin, I just don't have enough knowledge about them. They may very well be great watches. And again, if this is the watch you specifically want, don't listen to me, go out and buy it. But explore your options. Lots of options out there. Just make sure you take into consideration things like resale value, things like durability. So look for a combination of materials and think in terms of how a watch gets beats up. That's very, very important. But at the end of the day, as I always say, buy what you like first and foremost. Of course, my choice would be the AP, but once again, I am super biased. Well, guys, that's it for me for today. You already know what I have on my wrist, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hit the like button, share, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday.